Tinder matches, 5 chilling encounters. What starts as harmless swipes and casual conversations quickly spirals into a nightmare no one saw coming. A date who vanishes without a trace. A house hiding unspeakable secrets, whispers from beneath the floorboards. A face staring back from your own reflection, and a glitch that feels less like a bug and more like a curse. These aren't just stories, they're warnings. Because sometimes, the scariest thing about online dating isn't being ghosted. It's realizing you were never alone to begin with, so swipe carefully, keep your lights on, and remember, some matches aren't meant to be made. Story 1. The Disappearing Date. She had the kind of smile that could make you forget your surroundings, but also the kind of eyes that made you feel like prey. It started on a Wednesday night. I was lying in bed, scrolling through Tinder while a crime documentary murmured from my laptop. You know the routine, left swipe, maybe right swipe if someone caught my eye. And then I saw her. Her name was Elena. Her profile picture was striking, a black and white portrait, her face half hidden behind a cascade of dark hair. Her smile was warm, inviting even, but her eyes, they were sharp. Too sharp. Like they were studying me right through the screen. Her bio was brief. Let's meet somewhere quiet. Just us. It was an odd line, but I couldn't deny the pull I felt. Against my better judgment, I swiped right. Instantly, a notification popped up. It's a match. I almost dropped my phone. She messaged me immediately. Hey, up for a late night coffee? I know a cozy spot. There was something abrupt about her message. No introductions, no flirting, just direct. Still, I replied. Our conversation was clipped and strange, like she was following a script. Her responses were polite, but hollow. I told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe she was shy. Maybe she was just straightforward. She suggested a place I'd never heard of. Old Pine Cafe. It's quiet there. Perfect for a good conversation. I hesitated. Meeting a stranger at a remote cafe late at night wasn't exactly the smartest thing I could do, but something in me, curiosity, loneliness, something, made me say yes. See you there at 11? She asked. Sure, I replied. The drive out to Old Pine Cafe felt like entering another world. The streets became darker, quieter, buildings grew sparse, and soon only flickering streetlights and empty lots surrounded me. The cafe was small, nestled between 2 crumbling buildings. Its crooked sign hung above the door, and a dim yellow light spilled out onto the cracked sidewalk. I parked, hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The faint jingle of a bell greeted me. The place was old, faded floral wallpaper peeling at the edges, mismatched wooden tables and chairs scattered across the floor, and a counter manned by a wiry waiter who looked like he hadn't slept in days. And there she was. Elena sat at a corner booth by the window. Her pale face was lit by the faint glow of her phone screen, casting shadows under her sharp cheekbones. She looked perfect. Almost too perfect. Like a painting come to life. When she noticed me, her lips curled into a smile. She raised her hand in a small wave. You actually came, she said softly as I sat across from her. Her voice was low, smooth, almost calculated. Of course, I replied, trying to sound casual. The first thing I noticed was her phone. It wasn't like any phone I'd seen before. Bulky, with physical buttons. Like something out of the early 2000s, she caught me staring and slipped it into her bag. You don't mind sitting here, do you? She asked, gesturing to the corner booth. It's quieter. Her smile stayed frozen, her eyes unblinking. I hesitated but nodded. The waiter approached our table, his shoulders hunched, his eyes avoiding Eleanor entirely. He took our orders, a black coffee for me, herbal tea for her, and shuffled away without another word. Eleanor tilted her head slightly. You seem nervous. I forced a laugh. Just Not used to meeting people this late at night in places like this. She smiled again, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Our conversation started light: books, travel, favorite movies. But slowly, her questions turned more personal. Do you live alone? Does anyone know you're here tonight? What's your biggest fear? Each question felt heavier than the last, like there was a weight behind her words. She kept glancing past me, towards the entrance or into the shadows of the cafe. Her fingers tapped lightly on the edge of the table, rhythmically, almost like a countdown. Eleanor, are you waiting for someone? I finally asked. Her smile faltered for a brief moment before snapping back into place. It's just us. Don't worry about it. But I couldn't stop worrying. I noticed something then. Her reflection in the window. It was faint, almost faded, like she wasn't really there. The cafe lights flickered briefly, and for a split second, I thought I saw something. Someone, standing outside in the dark. I'll be right back, I said, standing abruptly. Just need to use the restroom. She watched me as I walked away, her smile still plastered on her face. The restroom was small and freezing cold. A flickering bulb buzzed overhead, and the mirror above the sink was cracked. I splashed water on my face and stared at my reflection. My mind was racing. Okay, I whispered. You're being paranoid. Just get back out there and... I froze. Through the cracked mirror, I saw something behind me, just a faint shape in the doorway. But when I turned around, the doorway was empty. I rushed back out into the cafe. She was gone. The corner booth was empty, her tea untouched, her chair pushed in neatly. I stumbled to the counter. Where did she go? The woman I was with, Elena. The waiter stared at me like I was insane. Sir, you've been sitting alone all night. No, check the cameras. With a grim look, he led me into a back room. On the grainy black and white screen, I saw myself walk into the cafe. I saw myself sit at the booth, order coffee, and talk. But there was no Elena. I watched myself laugh, gesture, and even toast my glass. Alone. I barely remember driving home. Every flicker of light, every shadow, every passing car felt like it was her, watching, waiting. When I got home, I tossed my phone onto the couch and buried my face in my hands. Then it buzzed, a Tinder notification. Thanks for the night out. I'll see you again soon. Look outside. I turned my head slowly toward the window, and there she was, standing under the flickering street lamp. Her head tilted slightly to one side, her smile faintly illuminated by the yellow light. She raised her hand and waved. My phone buzzed again. Don't worry, I'll see you very soon. What do you think happened that night? Was Elena even real, or was she something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. Story 2. The house call. I didn't think twice when she said she'd rather meet at her place. I mean, isn't that every guy's dream? Her name was Mira, and we matched on Tinder late on a slow Thursday night. Her profile immediately caught my attention. Soft curls cascading down her shoulders, piercing green eyes, and a playful smirk that practically dared me to swipe right. Her bio read, "Come over. I promise I don't bite, unless you're into that." Cheesy, sure, but it worked. I swiped right, almost instantly. "It's a match," flashed across my screen. She messaged first. "Hey there, what are you up to tonight?" Her confidence was magnetic. We started talking, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. She was sharp, flirtatious, and direct. About 10 minutes in, she said something bold. "Why waste time with crowded bars or awkward small talk? Come over to mine. Let's have wine and see where the night takes us." A little forward, sure, but exciting. I hesitated. "Isn't meeting at your house a bit fast?" She replied almost instantly. "Don't worry, I'm not a serial killer. Unless you are, then we're both screwed." I laughed, and before I could overthink it, I said yes. She sent her address with a winking emoji. Looking back now, that should have been the moment I paused. The drive out to her place felt strange from the start. Her neighborhood was far from the city, tucked away in a cul-de-sac surrounded by dense woods. The closer I got, the quieter it became. No kids playing, no porch lights flickering, just silence and long shadows cast by crooked street lamps. Her house sat at the very end of the street, partially hidden by overgrown trees. It was a modest two-story with pale blue paint and curtains drawn tight across every window. No car in the driveway, no lights on inside. For a brief moment, I considered turning around, but then I remembered her smile, her easy confidence. I grabbed the wine bottle from the passenger seat and walked up to the door. Before I could knock, the door creaked open. She stood there, smiling. "Hey, you made it!" Mira looked just like her photos, better even. Her emerald eyes practically glowed in the dim porch light, and her smile was wide and inviting. "Come in," she said softly, stepping aside. "Don't be shy." The moment I crossed the threshold, something felt wrong. The living room was pristine, immaculately clean, almost sterile. The leather couch looked untouched. The magazines on the coffee table were arranged with surgical precision, and the faint scent of bleach lingered in the air. "Nice place," I said, trying to hide my unease. "Thanks." Mira's voice was light and cheerful. "Make yourself comfortable. I'll grab some glasses." She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving me alone. I sat on the white leather couch, the material cold against my skin. Looking around, I realized there were no family photos, no knickknacks, nothing personal at all. It was as if the house was waiting for someone to arrive. Minutes passed, then 10. "Mira," I called out, my voice sounding thin in the stillness. "Almost ready," she called back, her voice distant. When she finally returned, she carried 2 glasses of red wine and smiled that same plastered smile. "Sorry about the wait," she said lightly. "Had to find the good glasses." I smiled back and accepted the wine, but something felt off. We started talking, or rather, I started talking. She kept asking questions, but her responses were vague. Her eyes flicked repeatedly toward the hallway behind me, as though she expected someone or something to emerge. Every few minutes, she'd excuse herself, to check the oven, to grab something upstairs, to freshen up. Each time, the silence grew heavier. At one point, I heard it. Whispers, faint, distant, but undeniably there. I froze. The sound was coming from underneath me. Slowly, I glanced down at the floor. One of the floorboards had a gap wide enough to see through, and staring back at me was an eye. I shot up, spilling wine across the white couch. "Mira!" I shouted. She appeared almost instantly, stepping back into the room as though she'd been waiting just around the corner. "Everything okay?" she asked sweetly. "There's someone under the floor," I stammered. Her smile tightened. "You must be imagining things. Maybe the wine's stronger than you thought." Number I saw. "Why don't you sit down?" she said softly. "I'll be right back." She turned and disappeared into the hallway again. This time I followed her. The hallway was narrow, lined with closed doors. At the end, faint light leaked out from under one of them. Each step felt heavier than the last, and the floor creaked beneath me. I reached the door, took a deep breath, and pushed it open. The room was small and suffocating, with no windows and a single bare light bulb hanging from the ceiling. Every inch of the walls was covered in photographs. Photos of men sitting on that couch. Men smiling awkwardly, men staring into the camera with glassy eyes. In the center of the wall was a photo of me. Same clothes, same pose, same awkward smile from earlier that night. "How?" I whispered. Behind me, the floor creaked. I turned and there she was. her head tilted at an unnatural angle, her emerald eyes wide and unblinking. In her hand was a long, serrated knife. "You weren't supposed to see this," she whispered. I don't remember exactly how I escaped. I remember shoving past her, the knife grazing my arm as I stumbled down the hallway. I remember wrenching open the front door and sprinting into the night. I ran until I found a road, flagging down a passing car. The police arrived, but when they entered the house, it was empty. No mirror, no photographs, no whispers. They told me the house had been abandoned for years. Back at home, hours later, I collapsed onto my couch. My phone buzzed. A Tinder notification. "You left so soon. I wasn't finished yet." Then, one final message appeared. "Don't worry, I'll see you again. Next time, I'll lock the door." What do you think Mira was planning? And how did she have that photo of me? Drop your theories in the comments below. Story 3, left unread. Don Reed. It was supposed to be just another casual Tinder conversation until the replies started coming in from my number. It was a Sunday night, the kind where you lose track of time, scrolling through your phone, wrapped in a blanket, the glow from the screen being the only light in your room. I wasn't expecting much. Tinder had become less about excitement and more about routine. Swipe left, occasionally swipe right. And then I saw her. Her name was Sophie. Her profile was simple. 2 photos. One of her sitting by a cafe window, steam rising from a cup of coffee, and another of her in a park with a golden retriever. She wasn't trying too hard, and there was something disarmingly natural about her smile. Her bio read, "Looking for good vibes and good conversations. Bonus points if you can make me laugh." I swiped right. The familiar "It's a match" popped up almost immediately. I hesitated. How was she online this late too? Before I could overthink it, a message appeared. "Hey." Couldn't sleep either. We started chatting, and honestly, it felt effortless. Sophie was witty, her responses were quick, and she seemed to match my humor perfectly. It was rare to find someone whose messages didn't feel forced or overly rehearsed. At one point, I joked about eating instant noodles in bed. "Classy choice," she replied, followed by a laughing emoji. I paused. I hadn't told her I was eating noodles. Maybe she guessed. It wasn't exactly gourmet dining. Still, something about it made me uneasy, but I brushed it off and kept chatting. The conversation continued, but something started gnawing at me. Her jokes, her phrasing, they felt familiar, like déjà vu, but stronger. At one point, she said, "Your room looks cozy." I froze. I hadn't shown her my room. I stared at my phone for a full minute before typing, "How do you know what my room looks like?" Her reply was immediate. Lucky guess. The unease that had been bubbling under the surface turned into something sharp and cold. I sat up in bed, scanning my room. The curtains were drawn, the door was closed, and the faint hum of my desk fan filled the silence. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I put my phone down for a moment, but it buzzed almost immediately. Another message. "Why'd you stop talking? Don't you want to keep me company?" I hesitated, then replied, "I think I'm done for the night. Take care, Sophie." I locked my phone and set it face down on my nightstand. For a while, there was silence. Then, a buzz, another, and another. The vibrations were relentless, like a swarm of bees trapped in my room. I picked up my phone and my breath caught in my throat. The messages were pouring in, one after another. "Why are you ignoring me? Look at me. Don't turn around." I stared at the last message, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I forced myself to type, "Who are you? Are you in my room?" The reply came instantly. "I'm in here with you." I jumped out of bed, clutching my phone like it could protect me. My eyes scanned the room, under the desk, behind the curtains, the shadows pooling in the corners. But there was nothing, just the faint glow of my phone screen and the sound of my shallow breaths. I turned my phone off completely and threw it onto my bed. For a brief moment, the room was silent again. But then, my phone turned back on, by itself. The Tinder app opened. But this time, it wasn't Sophie's profile I was staring at. It was mine. My own face, my own bio, my own words. And below my photo was a new message from my own number. "You shouldn't have done that." My hands trembled as I typed, "What do you want? Who are you?" The reply came in rapid succession. "I told you not to look. You shouldn't have turned the phone back on. It's too late now." I couldn't breathe. I grabbed a flashlight and scanned every inch of my room again. That's when I noticed the closet. The door was slightly ajar. I approached the closet slowly, every step feeling like I was walking into a trap. The door creaked as I pulled it open. Empty. But something caught my eye. At the back of the closet, behind hanging clothes, was a loose wooden panel. My flashlight's beam shook as I pushed the panel aside, revealing a narrow crawl space. It smelled damp and rotten, like mold and something else, and something organic. I shone the light inside. There, lying in the shadows, was an old cracked phone. Its screen was on and it was displaying my Tinder profile. I could barely breathe. The screen flickered and then a notification popped up. "It's a match!" From somewhere deep inside the crawl space came a faint, raspy whisper. It was my own voice. "Don't look." I scrambled back, my flashlight falling from my hands and rolling across the floor. The crawl space panel slammed shut on its own with a loud bang. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the corner of my room with the lights on, my phone turned off and buried under a pile of clothes. The next morning I deleted Tinder, but the damage was done. Sometimes, late at night, I hear it. A faint buzzing sound coming from inside my closet. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have checked the crawl space or just run? Let me know in the comments below. Story 4, The Last Swipe. I thought the glitch was harmless, a bug, a system error, but it wasn't. It started on a Friday night. I was lying in bed, lights off, wrapped in an old blanket, mindlessly scrolling through Tinder. The faint glow from my phone screen painted faint shadows on my ceiling. Left, left, right, left. You know how it is. It's not even about finding someone at that point. It's just habit. But then something strange happened. I swiped right on a profile, and instead of the usual match animation or a new profile popping up, the screen froze. At first, I thought it was just my phone acting up again, but then a face appeared. The profile photo was blurry at first, like an out-of-focus snapshot taken mid-motion. Slowly it sharpened. It was a woman's face, pale skin, hollow, dark eyes. A faint smile stretched across cracked lips. Her bio was blank. No name, no age, no location, just her face. I tried to swipe left. Nothing happened. I tried to swipe right. Still nothing. The screen just stayed frozen on her image. "All right, weird bug," I muttered, closing the app. When I reopened Tinder, I expected the glitch to be gone. But there she was again. Same hollow eyes. Same eerie smile. I restarted my phone. That should have fixed it. But when the device powered back on and I reopened Tinder, she was still there. And now, she wasn't just the only profile. She was every profile. Every single swipe, left, right, up, down, led back to her face. I stared at her photo, my chest tightening. Something about her didn't feel like a glitch. It felt deliberate. The more I looked at her, the more details I noticed. Her skin wasn't just pale, it was grayish, like someone had drained the life from her. Her lips weren't just cracked, they were almost peeling. And her eyes, they weren't empty, they were wet, like she'd been crying. I locked my phone and set it face down on the bed. but even through the faint reflection on my screen, I could swear I saw her, staring at me. I tried to delete the app, but every time I pressed delete, the screen would freeze for a second and then redirect me back to her profile. I tried again and again. Same result. A Tinder notification buzzed. I hesitated before picking up the phone. She likes you back. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct in me screamed not to, but my thumb moved on its own, tapping the notification. Her face appeared again, but this time she was closer to the camera. The faint smile was gone. She was just staring. Text appeared below her image. I see you. I dropped the phone like it was burning me. For the rest of the night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, those hollow, staring eyes burning into me. At one point, I heard a faint buzzing. I grabbed the phone from the floor and turned it off completely. But even then, I swear I could still hear it. That faint, vibrating noise, like a mosquito trapped somewhere in the room. I shoved the phone under my pillow and turned on the bedside lamp. The shadows in the corners of my room suddenly felt deeper. The next morning, I drove straight to a phone store. I handed my phone to the technician behind the counter. "Hey man, I need this thing wiped clean, like factory reset, everything gone." The guy nodded and hooked it up to his computer. After a few minutes, he frowned. Dude, Tinder's still running. I can't close it." I blinked, but I turned the phone off. "No, look." He turned the screen toward me. There she was, her face, her smile. I could feel the blood drain from my face. Yeah. Can I just get a new phone instead?" So I bought a new phone. Brand new, fresh start. I didn't install Tinder, didn't even think about it. For weeks, everything was fine. I went back to work, hung out with friends, and tried to forget her face. But curiosity is a funny thing, isn't it? One night, weeks later, I found myself sitting in bed again. The itch to scroll, to swipe, to look, it crept back in. Against my better judgment, I downloaded Tinder again. New phone, new account, new email. Everything felt normal. Profiles popped up, smiling faces, witty bios, cheesy jokes. It almost felt safe, until I got a notification. "Someone likes you back." My stomach tightened into a knot. I hovered over the notification, thumb trembling, and then I tapped it. Her face filled the screen, but it wasn't the same. This time, her expression was different. Her eyes were wide, unblinking. Her cracked lips were pulled into something that wasn't quite a frown, but wasn't a smile either. And below her image was one final message. "You shouldn't have come back." I deleted Tinder immediately, reset my phone. But sometimes when I'm lying in bed at night, I'll hear it. That faint buzzing sound. I'll glance at my phone, and for just a split second, I'll see it. Her face, staring back at me from the reflection of my black screen. Waiting. Me at the gas station earlier that night. Me sitting in my car, staring at my phone. Me walking up to the house. I staggered back, my stomach turning. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. "You shouldn't have come here." I spun around, and there, standing in the dark corner of the room, was a figure. I couldn't see their face, just a faint outline. "Lena!" I choked out. The figure stepped forward, just enough for the light to catch their face. It wasn't Lena. It wasn't even human. Its face was distorted, stretched, the mouth too wide, and the eyes too large, shining faintly in the dim light. It lunged. I don't remember running down the stairs. I don't remember bursting through the front door or tripping over the porch steps. I just remember the cold night air hitting my face and the sound of something heavy dragging behind me. I didn't stop running until I was back in my car, hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. The figure stood in the doorway, motionless, watching me. As I peeled out onto the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The house was dark again, like nothing had ever happened. When I got home, I deleted Tinder immediately. I couldn't stop shaking. My mind kept replaying those photos on the walls, me every step of the way. But then, my phone buzzed. A Tinder notification. "Sorry you had to leave so soon." I stared at the screen, my chest tightening, and then another notification popped up. "See you again soon." I shut my phone off and buried it in a drawer. But sometimes late at night, I swear I hear it buzzing faintly from across the room, and every now and then I dream about that house, the photos, and the figure waiting in the shadows. Would you have gone inside the house or turned back the moment the door opened by itself? Let me know in the comments below. A family home is supposed to be a sanctuary, a place of safety, warmth, and love. But what happens when that sanctuary becomes a prison? When the air grows heavy with whispers you can't quite make out, and shadows stretch farther than they should? When your children begin speaking to someone or something you can't see, and every creak of the floorboards feels like a warning? 5 families, 5 homes, 5 stories where safety was nothing but an illusion. A farmhouse where an ancient curse seeped through the walls, binding a family in a pact they never agreed to. A suburban home where a shadow moved without light, and a little boy whispered secrets to something in the dark. A secluded ancestral house where skipping one sacred ritual was enough to awaken something ancient and vengeful. Twin sisters who shared more than just their faces, one a conduit, the other an anchor for something malevolent clawing its way into our world. And a seemingly quiet suburban home where the real threat wasn't next door, it was already inside. These stories aren't just tales to chill your spine. They're warnings etched into cold glass and blood-stained wood. Because these families didn't stumble into haunted houses, the houses chose them. So lock your doors, close your curtains, and listen carefully. Because in the dead of night, when the wind carries faint whispers and shadows stretch just a little too far, you'll start to wonder, is my home truly mine? Or is something else living here, watching me, waiting for the right moment to make itself known? This isn't just horror. This isn't just fear. This is what happens when the places we trust the most turn against us. Welcome to 5 chilling stories of family, fear, and the unseen forces that refuse to let go. And remember, some homes aren't haunted by what died there, but by what never left. Story 5. The wrong address. When she sent me her address, I thought it was just a mistake. Turns out, I was the mistake. It started with a match. Isn't that how all these stories start? Her name was Lena. Her profile was simple. 2 photos, one of her smiling under string lights at what looked like a backyard party, and another of her sitting cross-legged in oversized sweats, her hair in a messy bun. Her bio read, "Looking for someone to share midnight snacks and terrible horror movies with." I swiped right, and it was an instant match. She messaged me first. "You seem fun. Midnight snack guy or horror movie guy?" I replied, and soon we were joking about terrible jump scares and our mutual love for microwave popcorn. It felt easy, natural. Then she said, "Come over. I've got popcorn and my couch is missing someone." It was bold, maybe too bold. I hesitated before typing, "You sure? You barely know me." That's the point of meeting, isn't it? Besides, I promise I'm harmless, mostly. She sent an address. It was on the outskirts of town, a neighborhood I didn't recognize, but she seemed genuine, and I didn't want to overthink it. I drove out around 10 p.m. The further I went, the more unfamiliar the surroundings became. Streetlights grew sparse, and the houses became smaller, older, and spaced farther apart. When I turned onto her street, something felt off. The address led me to a narrow, unpaved road lined with overgrown bushes and crooked mailboxes. At the very end of the lane stood a small, weathered house. One light glowed dimly from a window on the second floor. I parked and stepped out, clutching the bag of popcorn I'd grabbed at a gas station. As I approached the door, the wood creaked under my feet. The air smelled damp like wet earth and mildew. I knocked. The sound echoed through the quiet night. No response. I knocked again, harder this time. The door swung open on its own. Lena, I called out, my voice cracking slightly. Silence. The hallway beyond the door was dark, except for the faint orange glow spilling down from the second-floor window. I should have turned around right then, but I stepped inside. The air in the house was thick and stale, like it hadn't been lived in for years. Dust floated through the faint beam of light from the upstairs window. "Lena!" I called again, my voice trembling. A faint sound drifted down the stairs, like whispering. It was so soft I couldn't make out the words, but it was enough to send a chill crawling up my spine. I took a hesitant step forward. The wooden floor groaned beneath my weight. To my right was a living room. The furniture was covered in white sheets, and the wallpaper was peeling in long, damp strips. I pulled out my phone to text Lena, but the Tinder chat was gone. The match, the messages, everything. All that was left was her profile picture, distorted and glitched, her face twisted into something unrecognizable. My phone buzzed in my hand. A Tinder notification popped up. "Come upstairs." My breath hitched. I turned toward the staircase. The light from the second floor flickered faintly. I took the stairs one creaking step at a time. Halfway up, I froze. There was a smell, something acrid and metallic. Blood. I forced myself to keep going. When I reached the top of the stairs, I saw a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. The faint light spilled out from the crack. I stepped closer, my feet heavy, my chest tight. I pushed the door open. It was a bedroom, but it wasn't what I expected. The walls were covered in photos, printed Polaroids taped haphazardly, photos of me. Me at the gas station earlier that night. Me sitting in my car, staring at my phone. Me walking up to the house. I staggered back, my stomach turning. My phone buzzed again. Another notification, "You shouldn't have come here." I spun around, and there, standing in the dark corner of the room, was a figure. I couldn't see their face, just a faint outline. "Lena," I choked out. The figure stepped forward, just enough for the light to catch their face. It wasn't Lena. It wasn't even human. Its face was distorted, stretched, the mouth too wide and the eyes too large, shining faintly in the dim light. It lunged. I don't remember running down the stairs. I don't remember bursting through the front door or tripping over the porch steps. I just remember the cold night air hitting my face and the sound of something heavy dragging behind me. I didn't stop running until I was back in my car, hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. The figure stood in the doorway, motionless, watching me. As I peeled out onto the road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The house was dark again, like nothing had ever happened. When I got home, I deleted Tinder immediately. I couldn't stop shaking. My mind kept replaying those photos on the walls, me, every step of the way. But then, my phone buzzed, a Tinder notification. "Sorry you had to leave so soon." I stared at the screen, my chest tightening, and then another notification popped up. "See you again soon." I shut my phone off and buried it in a drawer. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear it buzzing faintly from across the room, and every now and then I dream about that house, the photos, and the figure waiting in the shadows. Would you have gone inside the house, or turned back the moment the door opened by itself? Let me know in the comments below.